Welcome back to the Premier League show. As you can see, our guest tonight, former Newcastle Norwich goalkeeper Tim Krul. We're going to focus on Manchester United after Casemiro confirmed that he will not reverse his decision to leave the club at the end of the season. United announced in January that Casemiro would leave the club when his contract expires after 4 seasons at Old Trafford, more than 150 appearances. And the reason this has sort of resurfaced is because he's spoken recently, Casemiro, after Brazil's 2-1 defeat by France last night in an international friendly. This is what he had to say. "I'm still enjoying it a lot in Manchester. It is huge, the affection that fans have shown towards me, but I do really believe the decision is made and done. I believe it will be some difficult moments, these final games at Manchester United." OK, let's get Tim's thoughts on Casemiro. I mean, obviously, you know, his time at Real Madrid before he came to Manchester United, all of that experience. But do you sense, you know, what he's saying is right? It's the right time for him to go?
I think I was quite surprised when the announcement came in January.
Yeah.
There was so much football still to play for. So I always find it a bit difficult when managers do this in January or players come out leaving. I don't understand why he did it in Jan, but that's his decision. Ultimately, what a player again at Real Madrid. So much success, so many Champions League trophies. And to be fair, at United, he's had a rougher roller coaster ride, but he won a trophy. And also, what you forget is the impact he will have on the new generation, the younger players like Mainu, because these kind of players will take so much of this experience, and I'm sure he'll be one of those mentors that will look after this kind of young players coming through.
Do you think that that's, I suppose, an underrated success metric for Casemiro? Look, he's won 2 trophies in a United shirt, so, you know, some people would say probably not been the success that United fans would have hoped, given what he achieved at Real Madrid. It's obviously hard to compare to that incredible midfield he was part of with Toni Kroos and Luka Modric. But, you know, the fact that he could provide that mentorship, you know, it's an amazing education for someone like Kobbie Mainoo to have. So is that something that maybe he should value, going, yeah, I at least provided that?
100%. And I think with data coming into the game, I think the whole experience side of football is being undervalued, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the core of these kind of players who create that culture around the training ground, have that respect that he ousts quality. And I think when a player like that comes into a changing room, he will have the changing room's respect. And again, for the new generation to see players like him putting in the performances like he has, obviously not the level that he did at Madrid, but yeah, I think it's very undervalued that, and I think he has been a success. And
also, given the fact that United, for a large part, have struggled over the course of the last few seasons that he's been there, so leadership qualities as well that he provides. So, okay, United moving on from Casemiro, do they need to sign 2 central midfielders this season?
Yeah, obviously they have to think about what's next, and there's some top players available in the summer. Are they going to get them? I think there's a lot of suitors out there for the top young players. I mean, you've got, I think they were linked with Baliba, and obviously Elliot Anderson is up there with probably the most elite players at the moment in the Premier League.
Talk to me about Anderson. I mean, you know, it's all right playing for Newcastle and for Forest, but what about playing for Manchester United? There's a little bit more weight when you're wearing that shirt, surely.
I love watching him play. I think Newcastle were devastated to see him go. A local lad like that, Eddie Howe knew that he would be in the England squad sooner than later. So yeah, again, and he's produced it. I think he went another level at Forest. I think the stats show up that he's in the top 5, if not top 3.
Yeah.
Top midfielders in the league at the moment. So yeah, I do think he's ready for another step. United. I
think also it's be interesting to see what kind of summer he has. Can you see him starting alongside Declan Rice for England in the World Cup?
Yeah, I think I love what Tuchel is doing with England. I think that he's got so many top players to choose from, and I think the way the coach is building at the moment, his way or the highway. And I think there's a lot of players who are individually amazing, but they need to fit in that kind of team culture. And Elliot Anderson, I think the levels he produced this season, he's definitely up there that he will make a good stake to be on that plane.
Let's talk about another midfielder who, in fact, scored against Northern Ireland in the playoff semi-final last night, and that's Sandro Tonali. Yes, another Newcastle player. Sorry to keep mentioning them, but they're obviously of real interest to many clubs. Tonali in particular, because he's of interest to Arsenal too. How good a fit would he be?
Yeah, I think, again, the Italian international. I think he scored for Italy yesterday. Top player for Newcastle. I think him, Joe Linton and Bruno have been the reason why Newcastle were so successful the last few years. So clearly they're going to attract a lot of interest, and teams like United clearly are going to look at players like him, and understandably the agents will be chucking the names in the press, and it shows the quality of players that Newcastle have now, that they're being linked with these top teams.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think, we'll see about what impact that might have on Newcastle.
Right, what about the left-back area? Is that where they want to strengthen as well?
Yeah, absolutely is, Vicky. Let me just give you some context to this. With, again, as I mentioned, a return to European football looking ever more likely next season. They need options in different positions, of course. And you look at the left-back area, maybe something we haven't talked about a lot this year, with Luke Shaw really returning to some sort of fitness, being consistently fit. That's been great for him and for Manchester United, but he's also out of contract next summer. Tyrell Malacia, another option, pretty much the backup option in that position for United this season. He runs out of his contract. His contract expires this summer, and it looks very likely he is to leave Old Trafford then as well. So Manchester United need to look long term at those options. I know the likes of Nathaniel Brown at Eintracht Frankfurt is someone they're keeping very close tabs on, but also perhaps a new name to talk about, and I'm sure Keith can shed some more light on, is, from my understanding, Lewis Hall is also on Manchester United's list. He's of course had a very impressive season. He's been called up by England as well. Again, I'm not saying that Manchester United are maybe going to get that move done or even try and bid for him this summer, but he's certainly someone who's impressed at Old Trafford and someone United are long admirers of as well.
Brilliant, Dan. Thank you very much indeed. And Keith, I will pick up on Lewis Hall in just a minute with you, but I just want to talk to you, Alan, firstly. Does it feel like Manchester United are back at the top table, or indeed did they ever leave, but they've got a bit more bargaining power to get in the best players?
They definitely left the top table for a period. There's no doubt about that. Even with the history that they had, it was looking like, they was on a downward spiral. I mean, when Amorim left, to say, if they'd have asked me to go in there and say, you've got to get us Champions League football, I said, I think that's highly unlikely with what I've got here. Michael Carrick has done an unbelievable job, and Steve in there, the coach, they've done they've got that turned around. They've had tremendous results, and Michael will be feeling it now. And just listening to those transfer rumours, will he be part of the conversation? I'm guessing he will be, because of the success he's had. If he hadn't had success, he might not have been part of those conversations. So if he's got gets his hands and paws on the decision, I would suggest you would look for somebody perhaps like himself, which would make sense. Yeah. Because that creative, cultural kind of player that he was, first touch, opening up the pitch, etc., will be massively important for United. I see them Friday night, and Manu and Casemiro were excellent. I'm not exactly sure what Manu is at the moment. I think he's still trying to find his way. But if you looked at a couple of them options there, Tonali for sure would get in that team. But he'd get that team as a number 8. Anderson, I slightly disagree with the reporter there in that I think he's a 6. He's the top interceptor in the Premier League by some distance. He reads the game so well. He's brilliant for Spurs on Sunday. So, they are the type of players that would fit that Man United model. With Casemiro going, there's an opportunity for somebody, and I'm just so really proud of Michael and what he's done there. It's remarkable, the position they're in with 8 games to go, or 7, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that. Sorry,
just going to say, Vicky, if there was ever a question about Manchester United's pulling power, it was answered last summer. I mean, I'm obviously talking about Newcastle because I feel like I'm qualified to talk about it. They went for Brian Mbeumo. He chose Manchester United. They liked Matthias Cunha. He went to Manchester United. They got all the way down the line with Benjamin Sesko. He went to Manchester United. Without Champions League football, and Newcastle had that. So they still do have that pulling power. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do this summer, when they potentially have Champions League football in the locker as well. And it's amazing to see all these players, young players, who Manchester United might not have been we thought might not have been a huge thing for them as it came through the ranks. Clearly they are, and that is why they chose to go there last summer, and they're probably going to get Champions League football next season. Well,
probably. It looks nailed on, doesn't it? Because the other teams don't seem to want it. With all the defeats that Liverpool and Chelsea are picking up, they look nailed on for third place, don't they, in Champions League?
Man United are always going to be top of an agenda because of the status of the football club. But that doesn't mean to say that if they hadn't made Champions League football, that would slowly dissipate, and it would.
Yeah.
It would. as we've seen with Leeds United, you know, what has happened to them over the years when they were so close to winning the Premier League, etc., etc. I think Man United have got themselves in an excellent position. I don't think the Newcastle players, and I think Eddie's been quite strong about defending Gomes and Tonali in particular, because I'm not sure that transfer would be possible. I think Newcastle got the financial power to hold off, but it'd be interesting. That could be something that you'll be looking forward to in the summer.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a chance one could go of the two. I don't think both will be allowed to go.